Hello guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel, and today's topic is going to be a little deep, a little heavy because it has copious amounts of information that blends sort of science and spirituality. So if you're somebody that doesn't believe in either of those or just spirituality, because everyone seems to believe in science. So if you don't believe science, if they don't align with your beliefs, or if it is a concept that is new to you, I don't think this video is going to be for you. You should probably learn more about it and then come back to these videos, because there are going to be certain terms here and there which, if you are a very beginner, might actually go over your head. So watch this with caution, not with caution, but like you can watch it if you want, but it's just sometimes you might just not understand what's happening in the video, is all I wanted to say. So let's begin. You gotta cut this out, okay? This is to my editor. These moments, like the moments like these where I'm just not processing or shit like that, you gotta like cut them out. So let's start. My hair looks good today. So let's start. Some patterns in our lives, they feel like they've always been there. The way we hesitate before we speak our needs, the way we overextend ourselves to keep peace, and the way we tense at the thought of like truly being seen. We think these are just quirks of personalities, the result of just this is how we are. But beneath those habits, there is a blueprint, right? That is written long before we had any say in the matter. This blueprint is shaped by something called the masculine and the feminine wounds, also known as the father and the mother wounds, to make it simpler, but it's not as simple as that, right? These are not small scratches in your psyche, they are deep generational imprints that can dictate your relationships, ambitions, and even the way your bodies respond to stress. They determine whether we trust ourselves, whether we feel safe when we're in love, whether we can stand fully on our own power without actually collapsing into shame or control. In a sense, these wounds, they live in two great currents of the human energy, the masculine and feminine. Now, each of these, we both, regardless of the gender, both of us carry these energies, and they are twin wings of our being. One gives direction, stability, and strength, and the other offers receptivity, creativity, and emotional depth. If either wings are damaged or underdeveloped, we cannot fly as high as we are meant to. If both are wounded, then our very sense of self becomes very fragmented, right? The masculine and the feminine are not about men and women. Okay, we'll do this again. The masculine and The masculine and feminine are not about men or women. They are Yep. So the masculine and the feminine are not about men and women. They are archetypal forces or patterns of energy that exist in every single thing, right from the cycles of nature to the dynamics of your own inner world, right? Healthy masculine energy is steady, protective, decisive. It's the mountain that holds its ground in a storm and the sword that cuts through confusion. The builder who creates structures where ideas can live and thrive. Now, healthy feminine is receptive, nurturing, intuitive. It's reverse that now cut. But in real life, very few of us are actually handed these healthy versions of these energies. We inherited very distorted forms, the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine, because that's what most of the world runs on, right? The wounded masculine tries to lead by controlling, to protect by dominating, to prove their worth by constant competition. It fears vulnerability and it's very rigid, right? And the wounded feminine, it gives until they're empty. They self-sacrifice in the name of love. They suppress their intuition in order to fit in, and lives in the shadow of needing constant approval. You might recognize both in yourselves, perhaps in different seasons of lives, perhaps even simultaneously, because these energies aren't separate compartments. They are two sides of the same being, and that's you. Next is the first drafts of your masculine and feminine energies were actually written before you could walk or talk or even remember. in your early years, your early years were actually like a training ground. Every single micro interaction with people every single thing was a micro interaction with people that were meant to guide and protect you. If your father was absent, emotionally unavailable, or unpredictable, you may have developed a masculine wound, learning that protection isn't reliable, that you have to fend for yourself, or that affection must be earned through achievement. And if your mother was cold, overworked, hypercritical, right, or emotionally engulfing, then you might have carried a feminine wound, learning that nurturing is conditional, that emotions are unsafe, or that self-expression, should be hidden. It's not always about cruelty. Sometimes it's just about absence. Sometimes it's about a parent that loves you really fiercely, but they're not able to attune to your emotional world because they're drowning in their own wounds. Next, your story may start even earlier, right? In very much in when you were in the womb of your mother, right? Science now shows that hormonal and emotional states of the mother during pregnancy can influence the baby's developing nervous system. Okay, spiritually, this is seen as prenatal imprinting. That is why joy, stress, fear, or grief felt by the mother can actually become a part of your emotional blueprint. A calm, connected pregnancy can seed a sense of safety before you even breathe air. A stressful, chaotic one can teach your tiny body to stay on high alert, preparing for a world that feels really dangerous. For example, if your parents were actually expecting a boy and they constantly addressed you as a boy or said phrases like, please be a boy, then you might grow up with relatively more masculine traits to yourself, right? In yourself, you might find them, and I think it's something I personally find in myself. Then there's what, okay, and then there is what you inherited without anyone speaking a word. Trauma can actually, I don't want to use the word trauma because it's not maybe on par with what you experienced. I am trying not to use the word trauma, but I'm still going to be using it everywhere else because I don't know how to refer to those incidents. So, although I know it's not of that much severity, but still, right? And then there's what you inherited without anybody telling you anything. Trauma can be passed down not just through behavior but also via biology, which is who will do this again. Will do this again. Trauma can be passed down not just through behavior but also through biology via epigenetics, where experiences change the way genes are expressed. You may have been born already carrying the imprints of war, famines, losses, and betrayals that your ancestors actually endured. Now, next one is from a spiritual perspective, and that is your wounds may not even be new, right? Many believe that souls carry unfinished emotional business and or incompletions from lifetime to lifetime. You may have chosen this life, this parents, this set of circumstances to bring an old pattern into the light for resolution. A pattern of, let's say, abandonment, a pattern of silencing yourself, a pattern of power being misused or being denied, right? These are not punishments, they are sort of invitations. They show up again this time so you can answer them differently. And what happens is most of us actually fail to realize, and we spend our entire lives living in those patterns. And your wounds, they don't just live in your mind, they live in your body. They live in your energy field, they live in the way you breathe, talk, walk, speak, and even stand, right? Mentally, wounds shape your attachment style. So there are, I think, three: anxious, avoidant, and wait, you can number them. One is anxious attachment style. You cling to connections because you fear that it'll vanish. Avoidant is you keep distant so that no one can hurt you. Disorganized attachment is you vacillate between the two, never truly feeling safe. So there are three, right? They also shape how you talk to yourself, whether you encourage yourself, doubt yourself, sabotage yourself, or your own progress. Sometimes, due to a dysregulated nervous system, things like weight loss can also be hindered, especially in females, right? Next is your body holds what the mind tries to forget. Your shoulders tensing as if, it's bracing for some kind of impact. You breathe very shallowly, your jaw clenches. Even chronic illnesses and hormonal imbalances can be linked to long term wear of unprocessed emotional stress. Spiritually, the body's energy system, as we call the chakras, they reveal where these wounds may have taken root, right? The first chakra is the root chakra, which is located at the base of your spine, your sense of safety and belonging. It can be damaged by early instability or neglect. Next comes the sacral chakra, which is right below your navel. It is your capacity for pleasure, intimacy, and creativity. This can be wounded when emotions are shamed or desires are forbidden. Next is the solar plexus, which is on your upper abdomen. Your personal power and your self esteem, it can be injured by criticism, control, lack of affirmation. Above these, there is the heart chakra that acts as a bridge where masculine and feminine energy meet. And lastly, there is the crown chakra, which is at the top of your head that connects you to the vast intelligence of life itself. Once you start looking for them, wounded masculine and the feminine patterns, they show up everywhere. Relationship, in workplaces, even in the way you talk to yourself, or when you make a mistake, how do you treat yourself when you make a mistake. These wounds, they're not random personality traits. They are actually survival strategies formed in environments where you felt unsafe, right? Now, the wounded masculine might live in you as hyper competition, like I mentioned before, hyper competitiveness. Every interaction is a subtle contest, and losing feels like annihilation. Next comes control, the belief that safety comes only when you can manage everything and everyone and all the situations that you're put in. Next is emotional distance. It is a reflexive wall that keeps vulnerability outside. Aggression or domination, masking deep seated fear of being powerless. Sometimes the wounded masculine swings the other way into passivity. You avoid decisions, you dodge leaderships, you tell yourself that you're easygoing when you're actually really very afraid of feeling or failing or being blamed. Now, the wounded feminine, it can often express itself as overgiving, meeting everybody's needs while neglecting your own. Porous boundaries, saying yes when your whole body, your entire being wants to say no. Self abandonment, prioritizing harmony over truth. And suppressed intuition, ignoring your inner gut feeling because it threatens the approval of others. Victimhood, surrendering your agency and waiting for rescue, right? Neither set of these wounds are, better or worse. They both lock you into cycles where you cannot fully inhabit your own power and your own voice and your own joy. And most people carry both to some degree, flipping between them depending on what situation they've been put in. Next, we'll see how culture affects these wounds and these cycles, right? You don't just inherit wounds from your family, you also swim in a cultural sea that rewards the wounded expressions and ignores the healthy ones. In patriarchal systems, men are told emotions are weakness, which is very common. I'm pretty sure every man out there has heard this at least once. Women are told that self-sacrifice is virtuous, maybe not directly to your face, but in subtle cues, in backhanded compliments. And from classroom to boardroom, competition is exalted and collaboration is called soft, and intuition is dismissed as unreliable. Now, the wounded masculine gets praised as leadership. The wounded feminine gets romanticized as devotion. Even language reinforces it. Think about how strong is used versus how sensitive is used, right? Now, these movies show men proving love through grand sacrifices that ignore emotional connection. Women are shown winning love through beauty, caretaking, and patience, often at the cost of their own dreams and their own careers. There is another thing, and that is, as boys grow up, they're always told the traits of being a man is exactly the opposite of being a girl, right? Don't cry like a girl, don't scream like a girl, don't run like a girl, and multiple others. So when they're taught this, right? Just give me a second. So When this is what they're taught, when they say this in terms to prove what a man actually is, then how are they actually supposed to like girls? And mind you, all of these are very basic human things. So these narratives are repeated so often that they feel like nature, not conditioning. And because the rewards are real, the promotions, the popularity, the praise, and the wounds, they get reinforced instead of actually being questioned. Now, wounds will seek what is familiar instead of what is unhealthy. What is healthy, not unhealthy, sorry. What is healthy? If you grew up unseen, you may act unconsciously choose relationships where you are invisible because your nervous system associates invisibility with love. If you grew up controlled, you might seek out environments where you're micromanaged because that's how, that's what feels like this is how life works. This is why logic alone cannot heal you. You can know exactly what's happening and still find yourself in the same loops. The pull of familiarity, is stronger than the pull of freedom until you break the cycle. Another reason that these wounds actually persist is that they're often tangled with identity. If you've been the responsible one all your life, letting go of overgiving feels like betrayal. If you have been the tough one, then showing vulnerability feels like complete destruction. And if the wound carries karmic roots, that is, unfinished patterns from other lifetimes, it won't simply dissolve within one insight. It takes multiple levels, it takes integration on multiple levels: mental, emotional, physical, and even energetic. Right? Healing the masculine and feminine wounds is not about erasing them. It's about bringing the distorted parts back into balance so that healthy expression can flow. So, how do we heal? It's usually advised to go to experts to heal, but if you're young and you cannot afford to go to healing centers, then I'll share some things that can help. Either you can look into them yourselves, or I can give you detailed videos covering these practices for you. So, attachment based therapy, it helps repair relational trust and shifts you towards secure connections. Somatic experiencing, it works strictly with the nervous system to release trauma stored in the body. Then comes the EMDR, which reprocesses painful memories so that they no longer can hijack the present. Inner child work, it allows you to reparent your younger self, healing that holds the wound, right? Next is some energetic and spiritual practices, and that is breath work. It can quiet the flight or flight reflex and open the body to release. Sound healing, use vibration to shift stuck emotional energy. Chakra balancing, it can restore the flow in specific centers while wounds have lodged. Past life regression, it addresses the karmic origins of recurring patterns. There's one more called Ho'oponopono, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a Hawaiian practice of forgiveness. It clears energetic debts within yourself, right? Next is energy alchemy, that transforms dense emotions into usable life force like creativity. Healing begins with noticing your patterns without judgment. When you catch yourself overgiving, don't just scold yourself. Ask, what fear is it that you're trying to soothe? When you feel the urge to control, pause and ask, what uncertainty are you trying to avoid? And from a psychological perspective, this creates neuroplasticity. You literally build new pathways in your brain by making new choices in old situations. And this is also known as energy alchemy, which I just said, which is transmuting dense, fearful energy into light, creative force. Over time, the nervous system learns that safety is not found in one extreme or the other, but in the balance between them. Next, we live in a world that is undergoing a frequency shift, right? A movement from dense, fear driven 3D consciousness to a higher vibration that is sometimes called as 5D consciousness. In 3D, separation dominates: masculine versus feminine, self versus the others, control versus chaos. But when you actually come in 5D, unity emerges: masculine and feminine, self and others, structure and flow. This is not just abstract philosophy, it's visible in the acceleration of current events. Patterns that once took generations to change now just unravel in a decade. The wounds that once hid behind politeness, now they burst open in viral videos, protests, and public reckonings. On a soul level, this is an opportunity. When enough individuals heal their masculine and feminine energies, cultural systems that depend on those imbalances. This is the end of the video, and I really hope that you enjoyed every single moment of this because it took me a lot of time to research all of this. So, yes, and yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.